Hi. So I'm Christine. I'm the co-author and co-editor of the Coach's Casebook. And I was asked, what does happiness mean to me? And I think happiness for me is presence, like just being present in the moment and recognizing what's happening in the now. I feel it's in those moments that I can really appreciate life, I guess.
Happiness is presence. That's beautiful. So how does that show up for you? How do you get more of that in your life?
Um, I think through meditation, that's really helped a lot. It's a practice like that I started many years back now. I feel it's maybe almost 8 years ago that I started, and it was actually like sort of an act of desperation. I didn't like who I was at that time. I felt mainly not who I was as a person, but the type of mother that I was for my kids. And I decided that I needed to change, but I didn't really know how to change. And so I started, I don't know what came over me that decided like I went to this like corner in my garden and I just kept like repeating three things that I felt I needed in my life. And one of those was happiness. And so it was happiness, it was wisdom, and it was patience. So those are the three things that I felt that I really needed to be the person that I wanted to become. And so years, kind of as it passed, I started defining what those words meant to me. And I realized that it's in the moments where I was present and not like trying to rush to the next moment or trying to do just like with the moment in that moment that I was at my happiness. And so yeah, so that word actually resonates a lot with presence for me.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Patience and wisdom and happiness. Those are three very good things. I like those too. So very cool. Very cool. Well, we're going to talk today about stepping out of your comfort zone, and about fear and some of that. So, Christine, why is fear such a big thing for so many people? I know you coach and you train and stuff like that. So why is fear such a big thing?
I think I mean, it's innate in us, right? We're all born with that. And so it's just part of the human experience. So the question isn't like really why is it that we fear, but it's how to kind of overcome our fears, because it's through our belief systems. So that's why not everyone is afraid of the same things that kind of make you afraid to try new things or to do certain things or and so yeah, so I think that that's what that's why people are afraid and experience fear.
Okay, so belief systems. So that's interesting. So it can be as simple as just believing something different in order to overcome that fear.
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was that easy there, but it's a very intricate thing, right? Because our belief system is in our subconscious, and most of our beliefs were formed like between the ages, like between the time that we're born till 8 years. Most of our belief system is created, and then of course there's other experiences in our life that creates different beliefs, but nonetheless, everything is sort of happening through our subconscious. And so what happens is that you just get triggered. And so the trigger to this situation that's happening is allowing you to believe that you're in danger in that moment. And so you start reacting in a way to protect yourself. And sometimes your fears are created by disempowering beliefs. And so it kind of holds you back from doing things or trying things that you really want to try or do, for example. And so the key is recognizing when that happens, like when you're triggered, recognizing, oh, something's going on here right now. And then working your way backwards and seeing, what emotions is it that you're feeling? And what is it that you're not getting from that situation that you need? And then when you're understanding these things, you can slowly start to unravel like what is the belief system that is creating these emotions and these unmet needs, and what is it ultimately that you're afraid of. And it's crazy because like in all of my sessions, every single time that I do this with my clients, it's like the answers are within you. You just like have to ask the right questions, and then everything kind of comes out. And it's really, and what's even crazier is that when you see that when you're not handling these things, they just keep showing up, but in different ways. And it'll keep showing up until you work through it. And once you work through it, then you're able to start, kind of releasing yourself from these fears, from these beliefs, by choosing your thoughts and choosing how do you want to show up instead of just allowing the autopilot to take over.
So give us some of those good questions. What are some of the good questions we should ask ourselves to at least get started on that?
I mean, it's really as simple as, what is it that I'm afraid of? It comes out that easily, but you have to be aware that you're triggered in that moment. And you have to like look in and be like, okay, what am I feeling? Even if the answer is like, I'm so angry. Okay. And then asking yourself that question, okay, so what is it that I'm afraid of? And the answer usually shows up quite quickly, actually. And when it does, sometimes you're like, yeah, but it's legitimate. I should be afraid of that. I've been hurt in the past, and, blah, 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 and whatever. And so that's when you start looking into it like a little bit deeper. And of course, when you have somebody there guiding you through that process, it's a lot easier than if you're trying to do it on your own. Most definitely you can do it on your own. It just takes more time. But the simple question of what am I afraid of will unravel a lot in that moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's such a simple question. And yet often we don't even recognize when we're triggered. We just act and react.
Exactly.
We get stuck, right?
Exactly. So, yeah.
Wow. So with that, I want to try something new. Let's try something new, right? That's stepping out of our comfort zone, but often we don't. We're like, that's something, right? That's different. That's scary. That's whatever it is. So is stepping out of your comfort zone, is the reason we don't do more of that is because of fear, you think? Or what do you find?
100%. I definitely believe that the reason why most of us stay within the limits of our comfort zone is because in that space, you've created a safe area where you believe everything is more or less predictable. So you believe that you're in control. You understand? But it's an illusion. You're not in control. Your external experience will never be in your control. But because things are somewhat predictable, it gives you this illusion that you are in control. And so stepping out of that illusion is really uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you try to take steps out of your comfort zone without doing the work, I feel that you're usually kind of pushing yourself out. And that's a really painful experience. There's a better way to go about it. And that's what I talk about in the coach's casebook. It's going through the 7 keys. And when you're going through that, basically, what is it that I'm feeling? What is it that I need that I'm not receiving? What do I believe? What am I afraid of? What are my values? What's my intention? What were my expectations? Like just going through all of these things, at the end, you have this really clear picture and you can make a choice. Like, do I want to continue living in fear, or do I want to choose something different? Do I want to choose alignment? Do I want to choose love? Do I want to choose, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have like that picture laid out in front of you, it's a lot easier to make that choice, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you have a clear picture, it is easier to see what's there and what's not,
Mm-hmm.
and also what's not there. I think sometimes that's just as empowering, right? If we can see, oh, I thought that would be there, but that isn't really there, right?
Wait, what do you mean by that?
So if I thought that I was looking for, I don't know, for compassion, and I was really looking for love, and then I realized that compassion isn't there, that could be something altogether different. That might be reassuring, or that might be more concerning, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, when you get clarity, that's the key. It's the first step is just like being aware of what's kind of going on internally, because when you have that kind of clarity, then you know what steps you want to take. You know where it is which direction you want to go in. But when you don't have it, everything is really like 95% of of our awake state is being run by our subconscious. You understand?
Wow.
So when you don't know what's going on there and you don't have the vocabulary to kind of like pinpoint these things, right? Emotions, that you just feel them. You don't necessarily know what they are. For most people, when you ask them like, how do you feel? You know, they just know like, I'm happy, I'm angry, I'm sad. Like they don't have more like in-depth words to describe all of these different feelings. But there's so many, you know, layers that when you kind of start looking at it and understanding it, and you realize, oh, I was actually jealous, not angry. You understand? And then you're like, oh, that's interesting. Why would I be jealous? What am I afraid of? That's kind of where it comes. You see, what I believe is that there's kind of like two spectrums. One is love and one is fear. Okay? Or actually, I should have asked you this question before I said this.
Go ahead.
What do you think? What do you think? I mean, it's a little too late now, but what do you think the opposite of love is?
You said fear, but I don't know that I would say fear. I would say like dispassion, like
Right.
no love, right?
Right. No, hate, right?
Yeah.
Right. So what it is though, hate is a byproduct of fear. It's rooted in fear. I hate you because I'm afraid you're going to hurt me. And so I build this wall of protection called hate to keep a distance between us. You understand? And so when you start looking at every single emotion one by one, you start realizing that they're actually all rooted in fear. You just have to ask yourself the question, what is it that I'm afraid of? And you can discover it. Like when you look at jealousy, for example, I'm jealous because I'm afraid that I will not have what you have, right? Greed, you know, I'm afraid of scarcity. I'm afraid I don't have enough, right? So every time you start looking at all these negative emotions, you can start seeing that they're actually rooted in fear. And when you understand what it is that you specifically are afraid of when that emotion arises, then you start putting the power in your hands. You're shining a light onto this fear, into this dark place that you've never really looked at. And so once that light is lit, it kind of allows space for awareness and growth. And that's how you can actually get yourself out of it. So the other side of the spectrum is love. So every positive emotion is rooted in love. If you look at it in like, if you would look at it, let's say in like, you know, religiously or whatever, you can say like God and the devil. You know what I mean? It's all, you know, yin and yang. It's all, it's just opposite sides of the spectrum. And then what's in the middle is the experience. So it's the positive experience, negative experience. You understand what I mean?
Yeah. So how do we know though what's positive and what's negative? Is that just based on our experience, or what's that?
Yeah,
How do we know?
100%. It's how you experience it. So asking yourself, what do I feel in this moment? So if you're feeling, you know, triggered, uncomfortable or whatever, angry, you know, looking into it, you're going to discover what is that really, what is that first emotion really? You know, sometimes just looking at an emotional wheel could really help, because the vocabulary is what's missing. I think our emotions are all like in a place in our brain that doesn't have vocabulary. I think it's like the limbic part of the brain. I'm not sure, but it's stored in that part of your brain. And so when you're trying to extract these, you know, emotions and understand them, if you don't have the vocabulary for it, then you're just having these sensations of discomfort, of anxiety, of overwhelm, of, you know.
Yeah. That's so interesting. So we don't even have the words to describe what we need at some point unless we find those words. Am I understanding that correctly?
I mean, yeah, to some extent. Once you start practicing this and start looking into it, you start becoming more aware. And so the more aware you become, the more you get the opportunities to kind of create that shift. And that's how you step out of your comfort zone instead of pushing yourself out of the comfort zone. So every step that you take, when you're like, oh, this feels really uncomfortable. What am I feeling right now? I'm feeling in my body, my stomach is turning. What emotions am I feeling right now? I'm anxious, I'm worried, you know. So when you start looking at how your body is reacting, and then looking at what does that mean, like literal, like the actual words to what this feels like, you know, like what are the words to that? you become aware. The next time it happens, you feel it and you're like, right away, that's what I'm feeling. Right? That's how I'm like, you start relating to it. And so when you relate to it and you understand it, I feel this way, and this means that I'm, worried, or I'm anxious, or I'm, anywhere embarrassed, or whatever the words that resonate with you in that moment, you recognize that in the future moments when the same bodily feelings come up, you recognize, wait, what is that? Oh, I remember. And then you can connect those dots a lot quicker. For me, I see everything in like patterns and connecting dots and puzzle pieces,
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like you're connecting. Once you make the puzzle, you're able to like undo it and remake it really quickly, right? Because you've already done it once before. This is kind of the same feeling, the same idea. When you're feeling these emotions and you recognize them, and you know that this emotion is connected to this fear, you can easily like put the puzzle back together and automatically make the choices that you made when you were not feeling those feelings, and decide to show up in a way that's more in alignment with your values, with who you are, with how you want to show up in this world, with intention rather than expectations, rather than fear, rather than, limiting beliefs.
So tell me what the difference between intention and expectation. What's the difference?
So an expectation is basically, if I do A, then I'm expecting B to happen, right? I do this, and that should be the result. And it's so discreet when you have these expectations. Sometimes, like, it can be something so simple. I remember, for example, when I started coaching, like years back, I remember that I had this expectation that my client at the end of the session would feel better, right? And anytime they didn't, I was like, oh, I did such a shitty job and I feel so bad. And, until I realized that I'm going in with an expectation. I'm going in with this expectation that my clients should feel better. But this is a variable that's out of my hands. I will never be able to control, how they feel or what the result will be, right? That's their own experience. What I can do, though, is show up with intention. And what that means is showing up in a way that's in alignment with my values and with who I am. So when I decided that I'm going to go into my sessions to connect with people, and I'm going to be open to connection. And that's it. That's all it is. And so if I've connected with you, then I've done my job. However you react to that, that's for you. That's your experience. I may not be able to help you. I may be able to help you, but I can't go in expecting that I will make it better at the end of the day, because only you can make things better for yourself, right? So yeah, I feel like I like using that as an example to kind of just like show the difference between an intention and an expectation, because our expectations are like limitless. I swear, everywhere you look, you'll realize that you take these actions with these expectations. And at the end of the day, it's those expectations that trigger these negative emotions, disappointment, anger, whatever it is, because you were, hoping that it was going to turn out a certain way. And when it didn't, you were let down. Right?
Absolutely.
And so you gain that control back when you decide to show up with intention. And so I'm going to show up the best way that I can. And then I leave the rest up to God. And I let the rest, and however it plays out, it plays out. But I know that I showed up the best that I can, because I didn't go in with an expectation, sometimes an expectation that is, only for my benefit and not for the other person's benefit. Or maybe it is for the other person's benefit and it's crossing my boundaries or whatnot, right? I'm going in with an intention. This is how I want to show up. And when I do that, then I feel satisfied. That's enough for me.
Wow, that's so interesting. That's such a good distinction too between intention and expectation. I hadn't considered that before. So that's really helpful to think about. I like that. So yeah. So talk to me a little bit about getting started here. This is all of this stepping out of comfort zone and overcoming fear, this is all kind of scary. It's all kind of new for people. So if somebody's new and they want to get started on the journey towards stepping out of their comfort zone and overcoming some of their self-limiting beliefs and their fears, Christine, where do they start?
Start with awareness. That's where you start. You have to, you know, like they say, ignorance is bliss, right? If you don't know, you're like happily in that comfort zone, you're fine. But if you have awareness that you are there and that you want something else and that you know what you like, you know what things you want to accomplish in life, if you have that kind of clarity and that awareness, then it's the first step. It's the first step to start, you know, looking into, okay, what is it that's actually stopping me? And then once you're in that area of like, okay, what am I afraid of? Why can't I, you know, move past this? Then you can start looking at the 7 keys that I was talking about. You know, what is it that's stopping you? Getting rid of those blockages that are stopping you so that you can take those steps outside of your comfort zone and the awareness zone and going straight into, you know, your full potential.
That's pretty cool. So if people want more from you, Christine, where do we send them? Do you have a website that you want them to go to, or other than get a copy of the book?
I have an Instagram page, Connecting with Christine.
Oh, cool. Cool. So Connecting with Christine on Instagram, that's easy enough.
Yeah.
And then find you there, and then you're posting insights and things like that there?
Yeah, so I post generally about this topic. It's just like how to reach your potential. I also have a stationery for purpose brand called Advia Project. And so I also have a page there where I'm also, you know, talking about how to sort of, you know, create the goals that you want and how to achieve them and how to overcome anything that might be getting in your way, the struggles of being disorganized or procrastination or that kind of stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. So again, check out Connecting with Christine on Instagram, get to know her, and get a copy of the Coach's Casebook. It's a fantastic read. It's very thick, very dense, but lots of great stuff in there. You can pick and choose what you pick out. And I'd encourage you to read Christine's piece of that because it's super, super helpful. Thank you, Christine. This was really good.